And so you're saying that if they rise up,
that would be one of the parts of the solution. The other thing is Saudi Arabia, and I have to be very measured and careful here. You can't fantasize about the Middle East becoming Western Europe overnight. Every time we do this, we make a terrible mistake. When you have a modernizer like MBS in Saudi Arabia,
who's the ruler of Saudi Arabia, right?
De facto, he can't suddenly become a modern person. So, if we end up talking about Khashoggi and murders and murdered journalists and all this stuff, the whole conversation will derail. But he's a modernizer. And there was a moment where he needed to not condemn Israel publicly and thank it privately, but to say, we've all been terrorized by this country, and Israel did what everyone needed. We needed to rise up against the mullahs because you can't have a nuclear theocracy. You can't have a highly developed notion of heaven where this is the ante-room where you're waiting to get into the real room. That issue of needing to be rid of an aspiring nuclear theocracy was something that Israel undertook. Now, something that I'm going to say, there are three words in Yiddish which you may have heard or may not: shlemiel, shlemazel, and nebuch. So there are three unfortunate people. You don't want to be any one of those three. But the subtlety is that the shlemiel is a klutz, and the shlemiel spills hot soup on the shlemazel. So the shlemazel is the unfortunate person to whom bad things happen. And the nebuch is the weak, ineffectual person who decides that it's his job to clean up the mess. So the shlemiel spills the scalding hot soup on the shlemazel, and the nebuch cleans it up. Now, in the US, we've got this terrible sort of Christian nationalist problem that we've developed, which is what sometimes people call the woke right, where we have a bunch of people who've been badly treated. White Christian Americans have been badly treated in the woke era. They've been forced to salute everybody else's, yay for, Honduran Lesbians Day. And it's like, okay, enough. We don't want to do that anymore. We've also done great things. And I absolutely think that they've been mistreated. Yeah. And they've gone sort of metastatic. And their attitude is, no more wars for Israel. America first. What I was getting to with the Shlemiel, Shlemazel, and Nebuch is that most Americans don't have any idea who Kermit Roosevelt was. Do you have any idea of who Kermit? No. So the US and the UK jointly overthrew a democratically elected in Iran through something called Operation Ajax. We installed the Shah, and then there's this period where everybody stupidly celebrates the miniskirts and the jazz that was going through Tehran, which was a bridge too far. In other words, the miniskirts were a really bad idea because they were ready for some amount of modernization, and they weren't ready for that. And so we pushed it too far. And so we got the mullahs for 40 years. And now we chop off people's fingers and we pluck out people's eyes and we put homosexuals on ropes and dangle them from cranes. They're barbaric, they're horrible human beings. Okay? These are really bad men, the mullahs. And we did that. So the scalding hot soup is revolutionary, theocratic Iran. And we spilled it all over the Middle East, which is the shlemazel. We spilled it on Saudi Arabia. We spilled it on Iraq. We spilled it on Israel. Everybody suffers from having these people installed because of the US and the UK instituting a problem back in the 50s. And who's the nebuch? Who cleans this up? Israel volunteers for this job. And then Saudi Arabia pretends, oh my God, this is terrible.